The rain never stopped over Blackthorn Keep. It fell in endless silver curtains, washing the soot from the castle's ancient stones, whispering against its broken battlements like a voice no one wanted to hear. For years, the people of the valley had called it cursed, a relic of a time when the moon ruled men's hearts, and beasts walked as kings, inside that fortress of shadow and stone. Behind a single iron door at the top of the northern tower, a girl sat in silence, Isala Dre, 19 years old, pale as candlelight. The daughter no one remembered. Her room was narrow and cold, built of rough-hewn rock that smelled of damp and old sorrow. She had one window, barred with rusting iron. Beyond it, the forest stretched black and endless. A sea of pine, swaying beneath the eternal rain. They said she was mad. They said she was dangerous. But no one had ever told her. Why? Isala traced her fingers along the stone sill, her breath fogging the glass. In the faint reflection of the window, her eyes, pale gray, almost silver, caught the dim light like frost. She didn't look like her father, Lord Dre, or her brothers, or anyone in the castle below. She didn't belong to them. And deep down, she'd always known it. Every night, when the wind howled through the trees, she heard something else beneath it, a voice. Low, wild, ancient, calling her name. Isala. It had begun when she was a child. The first time she'd answered, the world had shaken, and so they locked her away. Tonight, the voice was stronger. The candles flickered, the walls shuddered as thunder rolled across the valley. She stood by the window, pressing her hand to the glass. Her pulse raced. The air smelled different, sharp, metallic, like lightning and smoke. Isala, she whispered into the rain. Who are you? The answer came not as sound but as sensation, a warmth that spread through her chest, a heartbeat that wasn't her own. Then came the roar. It split the night wide open. The walls trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. From somewhere deep within the forest, something massive moved. The guards in the courtyard shouted. Horses screamed. Isala's heart slammed against her ribs. No, she whispered. Not again. She turned from the window, clutching the old wool cloak she'd slept with since childhood, the only thing she had ever been allowed to keep. The crest stitched into its lining wasn't her family's. A silver vault beneath a broken moon, the mark of the forsaken line, the ones her father had sworn to destroy. The gate shattered first. She heard it from her tower, a sound like the world breaking. Men screamed. Steel rang. Then, through the rain and chaos, came footsteps, heavy, steady, purposeful. And then, silence. Isala stood trembling as the door at the base of her tower creaked open. She could hear the slow echo of boots on stone climbing higher, closer until the air itself seemed to hum with power. Her breath caught. Who's there? The footsteps stopped just outside her door. And then, with a sound like thunder, the iron lock snapped clean in half. The door flew open. Rainlight spilled into the tower as the figure stepped inside. Tall, broad-shouldered, his clothes torn by claws, his dark hair plastered to his face. His eyes, gold, bright as molten fire, locked on hers like he'd been searching a lifetime to find them. She stumbled back. You shouldn't be here. His voice was rough, deep, more growl than speech. Neither should you. She shook her head. They'll kill you if they find you. A faint smile curved his mouth. They've been trying for years. He stepped forward and she could smell the forest on him, pine, rain, and something darker. His presence filled the room, heavy, alive. Who are you? She whispered. He stopped just short of her, his gaze softening. My name is Kale Rowan, Alpha of the Shadowburn Pack. Her pulse quickened. The Pack of the North? He nodded once. And you, Isala Dre, are the blood they stole from us. Her breath hitched. That's not possible. It is, he said, voice low, sure. Your mother was one of us. A moonblood. Your father took her, locked her here, and hid you when she died. He told the court she was a witch, said you carried her curse. But you don't, you carry her gift. She stared at him, her voice trembling. What gift? Kale stepped closer, until she could feel his breath against her skin. The call of the Alpha, the voice of the moon. The bond that commands the wild. I don't understand. You will, he said, his golden eyes searching hers. Because I heard you. Isala froze. What? The night I crossed into this valley, I heard you call my name. Her lips parted. I didn't. Yes, you did. His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. You called without speaking. You pulled me through the forest, through iron and rain and stone. I tore down your walls because my soul couldn't stay away. Tears burned her eyes. You're lying. He shook his head slowly. No, you've been calling for years. You just didn't know what you were saying. The air between them felt electric. The storm outside grew louder, pounding against the tower as if trying to break in. Isala backed toward the window. If what you're saying is true, if I'm one of you, then why did you come now? Kale's expression changed, fierce and sorrowful all at once. Because the moon's mark is fading. The bond that keeps our kind alive is breaking. And the only blood that can mend it, he reached out, brushing his fingers against her wrist, is yours. The moment his skin touched hers, the world changed. Light erupted through the tower, bright, silver, alive. Her heart raced, every pulse syncing with his. The sound of the storm vanished. The rain stopped for the first time in her life. The silence in her head, the ache that had lived there since childhood, was gone. She could feel the forest outside. Every heartbeat, every raindrop, every breath of wind, and beneath it all, something deeper, ancient, and waiting. Kale's voice was a whisper. Do you feel it? Isala looked at him, tears streaking her face. Yes, that's your mother's gift. Her voice shook. It's beautiful. He nodded slowly. And deadly. Thunder cracked again, and this time it wasn't from the sky. Below them, men shouted, soldiers flooding the courtyard, steel clanging against stone. Kale's eyes darkened. Your father's found us. Go, she said, panic rising. If they catch you, I didn't come this far to leave you behind. He turned toward the stairs, his hands still gripping hers. You wanted to know who you are, Isala. You're the daughter of the moon and the heir of the Volf. She stared at him, her heart hammering. What does that mean? He smiled faintly. It means the storm belongs to you. And then the tower door below burst open, and the soldiers' torches lit the stairs. Kale pulled her close, his voice a growl against her ear. When I shift, stay behind me. She nodded, trembling. Kale! He looked down at her, his eyes burning gold. When this is over, I'll take you home. And before she could speak, his body began to change, bones snapping, muscles tearing. For spilling from skin, the alpha rose in the rainlight, enormous, silver, and black. The moon burning in his eyes, the soldiers reached the top of the stairs, and for the first time in her life, Isala Dre saw what it meant to be chosen by the wild. The Volf roared, and the castle walls shook as if the moon itself had come down to claim its child. The tower fell before dawn. By the time the last stones hit the ground, the storm had broken. The air was thick with smoke and rain, and the cries of soldiers echoed through the valley like the dying heartbeat of the old world. Isala Dre stumbled through the ruins, her cloak torn, her feet bare against the cold earth. The moonlight caught on the shards of shattered stone, painting the wreckage in silver. Behind her, the blackened silhouette of Blackthorn Keep burned against the horizon, a monument of fire and ash. Beside her walked Kale Rowan, his shirt ripped, his jaw bruised, his eyes still faintly gold from the shift. Blood streaked his arm, but his movements were steady, his presence anchoring her as the world she'd known turned to dust. You need to rest, he said. Isala shook her head. If I stop, I'll remember. And before she could speak, his body began to change, bones snapping, muscles tearing. For spilling from skin, the alpha rose in the rainlight, enormous, silver, and black. The moon burning in his eyes, the soldiers reached the top of the stairs. And for the first time in her life, Isala Dre saw what it meant to be chosen by the wild. The Volf roared, and the castle walls shook as if the moon itself had come down to claim its child. The tower fell before dawn. By the time the last stones hit the ground, the storm had broken. The air was thick with smoke and rain, and the cries of soldiers echoed through the valley like the dying heartbeat of the old world. Isala Dre stumbled through the ruins, her cloak torn, her feet bare against the cold earth. The moonlight caught on the shards of shattered stone, painting the wreckage in silver. Behind her, The blackened silhouette of Blackthorn Keep burned against the horizon, a monument of fire and ash. Beside her walked Cale Rowan, his shirt ripped, his jaw bruised, his eyes still faintly gold from the shift. Blood streaked his arm, but his movements were steady, his presence anchoring her as the world she'd known turned to dust. "You need to rest," he said. Asala shook her head. "If I stop, I'll remember." Cale studied her for a long moment before turning his gaze to the trees ahead. "Then don't remember." "Not yet." The forest waited, vast, dark, and alive. She hesitated at its edge. "They'll come after us." "They won't find us," he said quietly. "Not in the Shadowlands." The name alone sent a chill down her spine. "That's where your pack lives?" "Lived," he corrected. "Most were hunted years ago. The rest went underground, hiding in the old places beneath the moon's eye. And you?" "I never stopped running," Cale said. "Until you called me." His words landed softly, but something inside her twisted. "You keep saying that I called you. But I don't remember doing it." Cale glanced over his shoulder, the faintest smile ghosting his lips. "Memory isn't what binds souls, Isala. Blood is." They reached the forest's heart by midnight. The Shadowlands were nothing like the woods beyond Blackthorn. Here, the trees were older, taller than towers, their trunks covered in moss that glowed faintly blue under the moonlight. The ground was soft, the air thick with mist and the scent of wild herbs and river stones. It was beautiful. "And alive. Stay close," Cale warned, pushing aside a curtain of vines. "The forest recognizes my blood, but not yours. Yet." She followed him through the dense undergrowth until the trees opened into a clearing. At its center stood a massive stone altar covered in carvings, symbols of wolves, moons, and fire. Isala stopped. "What is this place?" Cale's voice softened. "The first moon's altar. The place where my ancestors swore their bond to her. Where your mother was blessed." Isala touched the edge of the stone. The surface was warm beneath her fingertips, vibrating faintly, like a living heartbeat. "It's humming." Cale nodded. "It feels you." She frowned. "Feels me?" He stepped closer, his gaze steady. "You are the last moonblood, Isala. You were never meant to be locked away. The power you carry doesn't fade in captivity. It grows. It waits." The pulse beneath her hand grew stronger. The carvings glowed faintly, light spilling through the cracks. "Cale," she whispered. "What's happening?" "You're awakening it," he said. The air thickened, silver mist curling around her feet. She felt warmth bloom in her chest, a strange, heavy rhythm that wasn't her own heartbeat. It was the same feeling she'd had the night he found her, but stronger, wilder. The world tilted. Her knees buckled. Cale caught her before she fell, his hands firm on her arms. "Breathe. Focus on me." "I can't." "Yes, you can." His voice cut through the haze, low and commanding. "Look at me, Isala." Her gaze found his, and the light softened. The heartbeat slowed. "What was that?" she asked, her breath trembling. Cale held her steady. "The moon's gift. The old power. It recognizes you now." She shook her head. "No, I don't want it." "You don't get to choose that," he said gently. "It's already chosen you." She pushed away from him, stepping back toward the edge of the clearing. "All my life they said I was cursed, that my blood was poison. I thought they were lying. But maybe they weren't. They were afraid," Cale said. "Afraid of what they couldn't control." "You aren't poison, Isala. You're balance." Her voice broke. "Then why does it feel like the world's breaking every time I breathe?" He didn't answer, because she was right. Later, when the moon reached its peak, Cale built a fire beneath the altar's shadow. The forest was silent except for the sound of wood crackling and Isala's shallow breathing. "You should sleep," he said. She shook her head. "If I sleep, I'll dream of fire." Cale glanced toward the distant glow of Blackthorn Keep, still burning on the horizon. "It wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" she whispered. "The storm came when I screamed. The walls fell when I touched the window. You said the storm belonged to me. Maybe the ruin did too." He looked at her then, not like an alpha, not like a savior, but like a man carrying the same guilt she did. "If the moon gave you the power to destroy, she also gave you the power to heal. Isala looked into the fire, her reflection flickering in its light. And what about you? What did she give you? Kale's expression hardened. A duty. To protect the moon bloodline. Even if it kills me. She met his eyes, the firelight dancing between them. Is that why you came for me? He hesitated. At first, and now. Silence. The kind that wasn't empty but full of everything unsaid. Finally he spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Now I'm not sure I could leave even if I tried. Her pulse quickened. Something shifted in the air, the quiet between them turning heavier, magnetic. The fire dimmed as if the forest itself were listening. Kale's gaze flicked to her lips, then away. You should rest, Kale. He froze. She swallowed hard. Back in the tower, when you touched me, I felt like I'd known you forever. You have, he said softly. Her breath caught. What do you mean? There's a bond between the moonblood and the alpha, he said, voice low, steady. When the moon first blessed our kind, she bound her chosen to one guardian. One soul to match her own. When your mother died, the bond passed to her blood. She stared at him, realization dawning. You're saying, yes, he murmured. You and I are bound, Isala, since the moment you were born. The fire crackled. The air grew still. Isala took a step back, her heart pounding. No, that's not possible. Kale's jaw tightened. It's more than possible. It's fate. I don't believe in fate. Then believe in what you feel right now. She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. The pull between them was too strong, an invisible thread. Humming in her chest, tugging her toward him like the tide to the moon. Her voice trembled. What happens if the bond breaks? Kale's expression darkened. It doesn't. If it does, one of us dies. The forest seemed to shudder. The wind rising through the trees like a warning. From somewhere deep beyond the altar, a wolf howled, long and low, filled with sorrow. Kale's eyes flicked toward the sound. His voice dropped to a whisper. They found us. Your pack? He shook his head slowly. No, the hunters. Isala's pulse raced. Then we have to run. Kale stood, his body tense, his gold eyes flashing. It's too late. The forest's edge glowed with torchlight. Figures moved through the mist, men in black armor, marked with the crest of House Dre. Her father's men. Kale turned to her, his voice low and urgent. No matter what happens, don't use your power. If you call the storm again, it will kill you. She opened her mouth to speak, but the first arrow sliced through the night. Kale lunged, pulling her down as it struck the tree behind her. Run! She didn't. She couldn't, because when she looked into the firelight, she saw her father step through the mist, Lord Dre, sword in hand. Eyes full of hatred. And in that moment, Isala understood that the night wasn't about survival anymore. It was about truth. And truth, she realized, was far more dangerous than death. The torches burned like stars in the mist, their light carved, ghostly shapes between the trees, flickering over the faces of armored men as they surrounded the clearing. The scent of iron and smoke filled the air. Isala's pulse thundered. Kale stood in front of her, half-shifted, his eyes bright gold, his breath sharp, his body poised to strike. And then she saw him, Lord Dre, her father, emerging from the darkness. His cloak was soaked through with rain, his face hard and pale, his sword glinting in the firelight. Step away from her, he commanded, his voice cold enough to stop the wind. Kale didn't move. She's not yours to command anymore. Lord Dre's mouth twisted. You mistake me, beast. She was never mine to begin with. The words hit Isala like a blow. Her voice broke. Father, what do you mean? He looked at her, not with love, not even hate, but resignation. Your mother was a curse upon this house. I took her in out of pity, not devotion. And when you were born with her mark, I should have ended it then. Kale's growl rumbled through the clearing. Careful what you say next. Lord Dre's gaze slid to him. The night she gave birth to that thing. That thing, Kale snarled, is the only reason your world still stands. The men around them shifted uneasily, gripping their weapons tighter. The wind carried the low hum of wolves somewhere deep in the forest. Kale's pack, drawn by the scent of blood and rage. Isala stepped forward, her voice shaking. You kept me locked away for 19 years. Tell me why. Lord Dre's expression hardened. Because you carry the blood of the first moon, because your mother was a witch who bound herself to a wolf, and because you, my daughter in name only, were born with her sin. Lightning flashed across the sky. Isala stared at him, trembling. You knew what I was. I knew what you would become. Kale's eyes glowed brighter. She's not a weapon. Her father laughed, hollow and bitter. You think I locked her away to hide her from you? No, I hid her from them. From your kind. The shadow burn would have torn the world apart for a moonblood child. The first true heir of the heart. The heart, Kale said, voice low, dangerous. You speak of what you don't understand. I understand enough, Dre snapped. The curse begins and ends with her blood. You may pretend to protect her, Alpha, but I know what your kind does when the moon calls. Kale took a step forward. You think you can kill what the moon chose? Not kill, Dre said, raising his sword. Cleanse. The air thickened. Kale's claws slid from his hands, his body trembling on the edge of a shift. You'll die before you touch her. Maybe, Dre said. But so will you. And then everything exploded. The first arrow struck the ground between them, igniting in a flash of silver fire. The hunters moved as one, weapons drawn. Their movements trained and ruthless. Kale moved faster. He caught the first soldier mid-strike, throwing him into a tree. His body shifted fully this time. Fur bursting through skin, teeth lengthening, the Alpha rising in full fury. His roar shattered the stillness, echoing through the woods like thunder. Kale! Isala screamed. He turned just long enough for her to see his eyes. They weren't gold anymore. They were white. She'd never seen anything so terrifying. Or beautiful. The fight blurred around her. Wolves burst from the trees, Kale's pack answering their Alpha's call. The clearing became chaos. Steel against claw, blood against moonlight. Isala stumbled back, her breath catching. The firelight flickered over her father's face. Calm, cruel, waiting. You think he fights for you, Dre said, raising his sword again. But he fights because he's bound to you. And that bond will kill him. She shook her head. You're wrong. Am I? He stepped closer. Ask him what the bond costs. Ask him how the last moonblood died. Kale lunged, intercepting him before he could strike. Their blades and claws met, sparks flying. Isala's heart pounded as she watched them. Two forces of the same fate colliding beneath the full moon. Then she heard it. The hum. The same low, thrumming sound that lived beneath her skin since Kale had found her. But now it wasn't just in her. It was everywhere. The earth beneath her feet pulsed with it. The air shimmered. The carvings on the ancient altar began to glow again, brighter than before. The moon above turned crimson. Kale looked up, his expression twisting with realization. No, the altar split open. Light erupted, swallowing the clearing. Men screamed as the ground gave way beneath them. Wolves howled. Trees burned white-hot. Isala fell to her knees, her hands glowing. The light was spilling from her palms, her veins, her eyes. Too much. Too fast. Kale dropped to his knees beside her, catching her before she hit the ground. You have to stop! I can't, she gasped. It's taking everything. He gripped her face, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me. The heart doesn't command you. You command it. Her tears shimmered silver. It hurts. I know. His voice broke. You have to let it out. All of it. She shook her head weakly. If I do, it'll kill you. He smiled faintly. Then we die together. No. He brushed his thumb against her cheek, his touch trembling. Isala, you are the moon's last hope. Don't let me be the reason the world burns. And before she could answer, he kissed her. The world stopped. The light surged, brighter than ever, and then it shattered, raining down like falling stars. When the glow faded, the clearing was silent. The altar was gone. The soldiers were gone. Only ash and shadow remained. Kale lay motionless beside her, his chest still. Kale? No answer. She touched his face, cold. His heartbeat silent. Tears blurred her vision. She leaned over him, whispering his name over and over until the word broke apart in her throat. Then something moved. Her father, half buried under the rubble, blood covering his face. He was still alive. You don't understand, he rasped. The heart isn't gone. You released it. Isala looked up at the sky. The crimson moon had vanished, replaced by clouds, but beneath them, the earth still pulsed faintly, like something sleeping. She turned back to her father. Then I'll find it. And I'll end it. Lord Dre's final breath came out as a laugh. You can't end what you are. Then he went still. Isala sat there in the ashes, the forest eerily quiet around her. The moonlight touched Kale's face, soft and pale. Her tears dripped onto his skin. You promised you wouldn't leave me. The wind rose. The wind rose. Carrying her whisper through the trees, and somewhere far away, the heart answered. The forest had forgotten how to breathe. Ash drifted like snow through the clearing where the altar once stood, falling over the bodies of men and wolves alike. The world was too still, too quiet, as if the earth itself was waiting to see what Isala Dre would do next. She sat beside Kale, his head resting in her lap, his skin pale as moonlight. The faint scar across his jaw caught the dying glow of the embers around them. He looked almost peaceful, but the peace was wrong. It was silence. Not sleep. And silence, she had learned, could be cruel. Please, she whispered, brushing his hair from his forehead. You can't leave me now. Nothing. The last echo of his heartbeat had vanished minutes ago. Her fingers trembled as she pressed them to his throat again, desperate to find the rhythm she had always felt there, the steady, grounding pulse that matched her own. But it was gone. The bond between them had gone cold. Kale. Her voice cracked. The air trembled with her grief, and for the first time since the heart had awakened, the power inside her stirred without her command. The ground beneath her hand shivered. The trees leaned. The air thickened. And then from far beneath the earth came the heartbeat. Slow, deep, ancient. It answered her tears like an echo. No, she whispered. Don't. But it didn't stop. The pulse grew stronger, matching the rhythm of her broken heart. The light returned, faint at first, then growing brighter, spilling from her palms, crawling up her arms in silver veins. The heart was answering her grief. It wanted to bring him back. The sky split open. Lightning cracked through the clouds, striking the altar's ruins. The ashes rose in a spiral, caught in a wind that came from nowhere. The forest began to hum, the same low sound that had haunted her since birth. And through it all, she heard the voice, Child of the moon. Your heart calls mine. Isala gasped, clutching Kale's body tighter. Leave me alone. You ask for balance. You ask for life. But every life must trade its twin. Her tears burned like silver. I won't trade him. Then you will lose him. The light flared around her, blinding. The air smelled of blood and rain, the taste of lightning on her tongue. Tell me what to do, she whispered. Give me your bond. The words sliced through her. My bond? The thread between you and the Volf. Give it to me, and he will live again. Her pulse stuttered. And me? The voice was soft, cruelly tender. You will be forgotten, as if you never were. She looked down at Kale's face. The scar, the lashes, the faint line of his lips, all etched into her memory. More real than the blood in her own veins, he had torn down her prison. He had given her freedom. He had given her a name that felt like truth, and now the world wanted to take him back. Her breath came in shuddering waves. If I do this, he'll live. He will breathe again. But he will not remember you. She froze. The wind roared through the trees, scattering ash like stars. A choice. The world or love. The same choice her mother had faced. She bent over Kale's body, pressing her forehead to his. His skin was cold, but it still smelled of pine and storm. She closed her eyes. I'd rather you live and forget me, she whispered. Then remember me and die. The light swallowed them both. It was not gentle. It tore through her body like fire and wind and lightning. She screamed, but no sound left her throat. The cry was swallowed by the roar of the moon's heart. The ground split open. For a moment, she saw everything, her mother's face, her father's betrayal, the wolves howling beneath the stars, the first moon splitting the dark sky. She saw the birth of the curse and the cost of the cure, And then, silence, when the light faded. The clearing was empty. Kale gasped, his lungs filling with air as if he'd been underwater. He sat up sharply, his eyes wide, the world spinning around him. He looked down, his shirt torn, his hands covered in ash. Isala? No answer. Isala. He rose, stumbling through the ruins, his voice echoing through the trees. Where are you? Nothing but wind. He turned in circles, his pulse racing, his breath ragged. The forest smelled of her, rain and wildflowers, but her footprints stopped at the center of the clearing, where she had been. There was only a single mark scorched into the ground, the shape of a crescent moon. Kale fell to his knees, his throat tight. He didn't know why, but the sight of that mark made something inside him ache. He pressed a hand to his chest. His heart beat steady, alive, strong, but there was a hollow space behind it. A wound he couldn't name. He didn't remember her, but he missed her. Weeks passed. The forest began to heal. The moon returned to its silver hue. The packs whispered of peace, of balance restored, of an alpha reborn from ash. Kale rebuilt the Shadowlands with his wolves. But at night, he would wander the edge of the valley, drawn to the place he couldn't remember, the place that made his chest hurt for no reason he could explain. Sometimes, he swore he heard a voice there. Soft, faint, familiar, calling his name. Far beyond the forest, where the mist never lifted and the wind never stilled, a figure walked alone through the wild. Her cloak was silver now, her hair pale as moonlight. She didn't remember who she was, not her name, not her home, only that the moon had spared her for a purpose she had not yet fulfilled. When she stopped at a river, the reflection that stared back wasn't the girl from the tower. It was something older, something sacred. And when the moon rose above her, she whispered to it without knowing why, "Find him." The wind shifted. The trees answered. Somewhere far away. The alpha lifted his head to the night and shivered. A memory he couldn't grasp brushing against his heart. The bond was gone, but the pull remained, and the moon, watching from above, smiled at the fragile mercy of what she had made, love powerful enough to burn itself out, yet still keep the world alive. Spring came late to the valley that year. The snow melted reluctantly, dripping from the pines in slow silver tears. The rivers broke free from their frozen chains, and the air carried that trembling stillness that comes before rebirth, the hush of the world, learning to breathe again. The people called it the season of mercy. They said the moon had forgiven the wolves. They said the storms were over. They said the blood had been washed away. And at the heart of the Shadowlands, the Alpha of the North walked among his people, his golden eyes calm but distant. Kale Rowan, the savior, the Alpha reborn, the one who had brought the balance back. At least, that's what they told him. But at night, when the wind turned cold and the forest whispered things he couldn't name, Kale dreamed of a face he'd never seen, a voice he couldn't remember, and the ache of a promise left unspoken. That morning, the mist clung to the riverbanks, curling around his boots as he followed the water downstream. The forest was waking, full of life again. Yet something in its rhythm felt off. He stopped when he heard the hum, low, delicate, like the faint song of something ancient stirring beneath the roots. The same sound that haunted his sleep. Kale knelt by the water. His reflection rippled with the current, his eyes catching the light like molten gold. And for an instant, he saw her, a woman's face beside his own, pale, silver-haired, her eyes full of something that made his heart seize. He reached for the image, but it vanished as the water rippled away. A voice whispered in the back of his mind, "Find me." He stood quickly, scanning the forest. "Who's there?" Silence, only the wind through the trees. 2 nights later, the moon rose full. The packs gathered at the ancient altar to celebrate the renewal, the first full moon of peace in a generation. Fires burned bright, wolves sang to the sky, and for the first time since the curse had broken, laughter echoed through the Shadowlands. Kale stood apart from them, leaning against a fallen tree, watching the flames. His beta, a broad man with gray streaks in his hair, approached with a jug of spiced wine. "You should be down there with them," the beta said. Kale smiled faintly. "They don't need me to tell them how to be free." "Maybe not, but they need to see you live." Kale's gaze flicked to the moon. I'm trying. The beta followed his eyes, then lowered his voice. You still dream of her, don't you? Kale looked at him sharply. Of who? The man studied him. You tell me. Kale turned away. I don't even know her name. Then why does your heart still look for her? Kale didn't answer. He didn't know how to. That night, when the fire had burned low and the wolves slept, Kale woke with his heart pounding. The sound that had haunted him, the hum of the earth, the pulse beneath the soil, was louder than ever. He followed it, through the woods, past the river, up the ridge where the moonlight poured like water. The sound led him to a glade he'd never seen before, untouched by fire, untouched by time. And there, at its center, stood a woman. Her cloak shimmered silver in the moonlight, her hair long and pale, her skin glowing with the faintest light. She stood barefoot in the grass, her hands raised toward the sky as if listening to something beyond it. Kale froze. He didn't know her, but every part of him remembered. The scent of rain on her skin, the warmth of her hand, the way her voice had once said his name as if it meant salvation. Who are you? He whispered. Dot. The woman turned. Dot, and for the first time in months, the world made sense. Kale, she said softly. His breath caught. How do you know my name? She smiled, a small, sad smile that felt like coming home. Because it was once the only word I knew. He stepped closer, slow, unsure. You know me? I did, she said. Before the moon took the memory from you. He stared at her, every instinct caught between disbelief and awe. What are you? Her gaze softened. What I've always been. The moon's daughter. The heart that was broken to save you. Kale's chest tightened. That's not possible. She reached out, her fingers brushing his arm. The moment their skin touched, the bond reignited, a flash of light, a pulse of power. A feeling that tore through them both. Images flooded his mind, the tower, the fire, her voice, her tears, her sacrifice. Dot, and then her name. Dot. Isala. Dot. He gasped. Stepping back, his eyes wide with shock. I remember. Tears filled hers. Then it wasn't for nothing. He reached for her, his hands trembling. You're alive. I shouldn't be, she whispered. But the moon had mercy. She gave me back to the world, not as what I was, but as what I needed to become. What are you now? The keeper of the balance. She looked up at the moon. The heart sleeps, but only because I dream for it. If I wake, it wakes. Kale shook his head. Then stay. Sleep. Live with me, please. She smiled faintly, tears sliding down her cheeks. I can't stay in this form long. The moon borrowed it. But she let me come back once to see you remember. Don't say that. His voice broke. Don't leave again. She stepped closer, placing her hand over his heart. You were always meant to lead the living, Kale. I was meant to guard the dead. He grabbed her hand, pressing it tighter against his chest. Then let me be both. Her tears fell freely now. You already are. That's why I loved you. Loved? Love, she corrected softly. Always love. The wind rose around them, the grass bending, the moon brightening until the glade glowed like daylight. Dot. She leaned in, her lips close to his ear. When you feel the wind in the trees, that's me. When the moon turns red, that's me watching. You'll never be alone again. He cupped her face, his breath trembling. Isala, please. Her body began to fade, turning to silver light. Don't, she smiled through her tears. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of the world we made. The light engulfed her, and then she was gone. Kale stood alone in the glade, the moon high above him. The night was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in his life, it didn't feel empty. He knelt, pressing his hand to the ground where she had stood. The soil was warm, alive with a heartbeat that wasn't his. The moon whispered once more, soft as breath. Balance restored. Kale rose, his eyes silver now, her silver, and turned toward the valley. The wind stirred his hair, carrying her scent. He smiled. Faint but real, the alpha and the moonblood were no longer bound by curse or memory. They were bound by the world itself, and somewhere, in the eternal rhythm of the earth, her heartbeat answered his, not as loss, but as forever. The wolves of the Shadowlands lifted their heads to the sky and howled. their voices blending with the wind. The moon shone brighter dot and peace at last belonged to them.